Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Secrets for an Inspirational Life. How are you all today? I hope that you are all well and that you are finding a little bit of sunshine and a little bit of beauty in your lives at this time in the world. We are here in the United Kingdom. I have to say it's evening at the moment and it's raining and raining and raining, which is not so unusual really for England, but it's much needed, I have to say. So the autumn nights are drawing in for sure. And that's a little bit like life, isn't it? I always liken life to the seasons of change, the seasons of different chapters that happen to all of us, and life becomes like a book that has many chapters. People that we meet along the way, some of them stay for a lifetime, and some of them stay only for a chapter. But regardless of whoever we meet in life, I think there is a reason for it, and as they say, a season. And today, I have the pleasure and the delight really to welcome my guest, who is the author and speaker, Matthew Williams. Matthew started writing in 2015 following a divorce and a strange alternative reality even of online dating. Now this I found fascinating, actually, I have to say, because I hear so many stories about this. He has really achieved so much. He has suffered personally with mental health issues but has overcome them to be very successful in his career. He published his first book in December 2017 and has never looked back. He has actually since published another book, and he's going to tell us all about that. He's a passionate advocate for mental health and has even developed a unique new personal development course called Change, which is based around storytelling principles. And it's designed to help people to make positive changes in their lives. He has featured with his writing in the Huffington Post, the Metro, and the Mighty. And that's just to name a few of the places that he writes, because he also does all sorts of articles for all sorts of places. And he's appeared lots on the radio and in TV shows. And today he's going to share his really quite incredible journey, I have to say. And really, he has such a positive attitude about everything that I love. And it's so, so needed these days. So without further ado, welcome, Matthew.
Hello there. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for the very kind introduction there.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Matthew, for coming on today. How are you?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. Very good. Like you said there, apart from the typically English weather, but we have had some sunshine, so I can't complain too much.
Yes, yes. Although I have to say, those few weeks, whatever it was, 2 or 3 weeks of the crazy heat wave, I'm not missing that at all.
No, I know. That's about our limit, isn't it?
I know. You know, when it started raining initially, after all of that, I did a little rain dance because I thought, oh my goodness, I totally understand these rain dances now. But I think they do rain dances actually to cool the rain, but it doesn't matter. I did the dance to just like welcome the rain into life again.
I'll say it must have worked, because it hasn't stopped since. It's kept going. So
I'm still dancing.
Something in it.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Really, it's a real pleasure and an honor to have you here today, because your story is quite incredible. And, you know, we've spoken before, and I absolutely love the energy of what you give out there in the world. Really, I do. So let's go back to the beginning and tell us a little bit about your story and where it all began.
So I always say I always kind of considered myself to have a pretty charmed life, really. You know, I good upbringing, great parents, support. I had good friends. I've always had good people around me. Did reasonably well at school. I was good at sport. So yeah, I had almost an ideal start in life, I guess, really, and did the things I suppose that you're supposed to do. And I was very fortunate to establish a career in sport, something that I loved. I met my now ex-wife, but pretty young, so when we were at university, and did the lived together, engaged, married, had a couple of kids, and well, I said kind of before that, so just after, it was actually just after we got married, I experienced my first bout of depression, which was not something I ever, I'd never even contemplated, that something like that could happen to me. And that was, a really significant time in my life in terms of shaping what came next, really. That was before we'd had children, and then I went on to we had 2 children. Then after my son was born, I struggled with depression again. And then a few years again after that. So about a year after my second depression was when we broke up. And then I say like the following year, I guess it's running on adrenaline, really, with all of these changes in your life. Your arrangements with your children, obviously your living arrangements, and your whole lifestyle, just everything changed. And so I think I was going on adrenaline for a bit, really. And then let's say about a year and a half after that was when I started writing, and that just like I said in the introduction, I never looked back from that, really. It was a strange thing. It was never something I'd planned. It was never something I'd done before. It just I just kind of felt a compulsion to write about how I was feeling at that particular time, and where everything had kind of hit me at once, and and it just poured out of me, really. And then and that led to various opportunities, and I also say it's like one thing's almost led to directly to the next step, and even the really bad things, and undoubtedly there's been some very, very bad times, but it's always come to pass that they've led directly to some of the best things that have ever happened. And it just, that I'd say that whole period of particularly the last 6 years since the breakup, and it sounds almost like a cliche, but after so long with someone, you really get to kind of rediscover yourself, really. As someone approaching middle age and suddenly on my own, you obviously your relationships shape you so much, and so when your major relationship is not there anymore, you kind of have to redefine yourself in your life, I guess. And that whole process has been quite a journey, really.
Now, how long before that, during your childhood and everything, had you ever had any sort of inclinations towards depression? Because I know a lot of children now these days, when you talk to them, it's a different generation, isn't it? Especially now, because I know maybe 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't really, even known about. Would you say that you had an inkling towards that, or was that something completely new that you experienced?
It was. I'd say,
looking back now.
The extent to which it hit me was completely. I could never ever have imagined. It is one of those things, like you say, you look back in hindsight, and thing is, I have this distinction I can make between, and it's one of the things, this whole, how writing's helped me, this whole, about reconciling the different parts of yourself, and you know, when you can suffer like that with something like that, almost changes you into a different person. So as a reflective person anyway, you know, it really led me wrestling with that, you know, and where did it come from? Is it part of me? Was I always, you know, was it something that always would have came out, or did certain circumstance, you know? And I don't think you can ever fully answer those questions, but so I make a distinction between, there's a big difference between that, you know, I can have periods where I'm maybe, you know, just a bit melancholy, a bit down, whatever, and it might last a bit, but there's a big difference between that and then being ill and not being able to function. And so when I look back, I can't say that I certainly didn't suffer with depression, because again, that it's a whole different order to, you know, that I had periods where, you know, I think certain characteristics I can say maybe contribute. So I was always a worrier when I was young. You know, my mind could pick up things and turn them over, and I could be quite maybe unforgiving with myself about certain things. So I suppose there are particular maybe characteristics or habits of mind that can contribute to the later problems that I had. But, you know, I wouldn't say that I suffered with depression as a child. I could be moody, but again, teenagers are. I've always had although I'm, you know, confident and chatty and all the rest of it, I do have a quiet, introverted side, and that. But I wouldn't ever say that was I wouldn't ever associate that with, again, poor mental health. You know, that was a shock to me.
And it can strike at any time.
Oh yeah,
you know, in any circumstance. And as we're seeing now, you know, with all the things that are going on in the world, especially now, I think maybe we all have that potential as human beings to have this, you know, ebb and flow of, you know, happiness and sadness in moments, but especially when the surroundings that we're in, as we are now, being surrounded by such negative news. It does play its part, doesn't it?
It does, and I think that and it's interesting. When you in the introduction, you said about, you know, I do have a positive outlook on life. You know, I would describe myself as a positive person on the whole. And I always try to find the positive in things, and try to find the opportunity, you know, in challenges. And I believe that everything can teach you something that ultimately can be to your benefit. But I think the difference with depression, certainly to the extent I had it, it just robs you of that completely. And I describe in the book that it's like a surgeon has cut out of you the ability to smile and laugh. It's just gone. It's just not there. It's not a case of you know, you choosing to think this way, or you can't, you know, you're not. I always knew what everything I had. I always appreciated everything I had. I knew how lucky I was, but that ability was gone. It was just gone. And it's a horrible feeling, and to, you know, to not be able to get any enjoyment out of anything, you know, out of your children. I mean, it's just horrific. I can't. And it's, you know, and again, I don't think you can really fully comprehend something like that unless you've experienced it. And that's one of the things I try and do with my writing, that, you know, just to help people to understand from the point of view of someone that's gone through it. And particularly, I think, because I am generally, you know, there's maybe sometimes been stereotypes of the type of person perhaps that, you know, and I'm not maybe, and one of, because I'd found, you see, when I went back to work after the first time I was ill, I was off for about 5 or 6 months, and it had been very clear for months before that I just wasn't well. And I can't hide it, so everyone knew I wasn't me. And so when I came back and I was again, people were curious and would ask me. And I was never shy about talking about it because, they'd all see me. They were my friends, I had colleagues, I trusted them. And so I suppose I felt, when people were genuinely interested and weren't judging me because they knew me how I usually was, I kind of felt a bit of almost like an obligation, if you like, because I did feel able to talk about it. And I know it is very difficult for a lot of people, but for whatever reason, I found that I could. And so I kind of felt like a responsibility to, really, not to hector people or badger people about it, but, I felt that, well, if I can help people understand, then that helps other people that are going through it, or someone who maybe knows it or has a family member that's going through it. If there's that little bit more understanding, it can make it that little bit, I wouldn't want to say easier, because it's the word easy doesn't kind of fit with it, but more able to endure it.
Yeah, that's actually a good way to put it, because sometimes when we actually focus outwards from ourselves and our problems and our issues, we get a form of healing.
Yeah.
Because it is no longer then within us, so to speak. It's actually projected outside. And I sometimes wonder, Matthew, whether we go through these difficult things in life so to help other people, because otherwise, how would we understand other people?
Yeah, I think, I think there's a lot in that. I think certainly, one of the things that I've always been, I'd like to think, kind of quite sensitive and hope, kind and decent person, but the level of, and not judgmental, people can be very quick to judge people in, different circumstances that might be struggling with different issues. But it is always that, it's cliche, but you haven't walked in someone's shoes. People don't set out with a choice to either be homeless or addicted to drugs or whatever it might be. There's always things that have, there's things that have led people to that. And I've always been, I suppose, I'm interested in people and the stories. So I'm always interested in that, rather than be quick to judge, based on my own experience, which is nothing like theirs. So, but you get a greater, that sense, I was going to say compassion, but empathy, that, you really get that sense of understanding how desperate things can get, how you can end up in a situation that you could never have thought possible. How you can feel completely powerless. So you do then have a greater sense of compassion for people, struggling through challenges that may make them, feel the same way. And you do feel, I think a lot of people, you don't want anyone to suffer in the way that you have. It's very difficult to see or hear people that are struggling that way, because you know just how bad it is. And you think if you can just can help in any small way, you want to do that. It's
to make the journey easier, I suppose.
Yeah. And one of the things, and like you said, that thing about helping other people, and I do believe that. I think that these things do give us a great opportunity to help other people. And one of the, I guess this, I don't say saying, but what people tend to say to you that, and I think it's really strong and resonates, and it's ultimately what led me to doing the work I'm doing now, about that kind of this storytelling approach and the power of sharing your stories, because that moment when you feel you're alone and you're going through something and you don't think anyone else understands, and then you see or hear or read something and it's, that's it, you get it. And there's so much power, and like what you do with this podcast, where people are talking about things where you think, yes, someone else gets it, it's not just me. And there's a lot of power in that.
I really believe that because, sometimes when you go through something in life, whether that be, let's put it, simplistically, whether you have a bad experience with, I don't know, a window cleaner, or I don't know, a mechanic, or you actually have depression, or you have, a bout of an illness or something, and you hear someone else going through similar, you know,
Yeah,
you actually feel better because you think, oh,
yeah,
you know what? I'm not the only one,
yeah,
At
yeah,
least someone else has gone through that. And look, they're okay now,
yeah,
as in,
yeah,
they're alive, they're okay, they've made it. And
yeah,
it gives that, that rope of hope.
yes, yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the thing that you say, the thing to me, the most, I always feel like when I've been speaking and things like that, the most powerful thing is for me that those worst experiences have led directly to the best. The most amazing things that I could never have imagined have happened directly because of those terrible experiences. It's not just that, well, they're in the past now and I've gone on to do things and have positive experiences. They're a direct consequence of those bad experiences. And again, I think it's stuff that I guess we might have heard and we can understand at an intellectual level. This idea that our biggest failures can lead to our biggest successes. Our lowest moments can lead us to our highest. All of this. It's one thing hearing it and understanding or believing that at an intellectual level, but living that in a really profound way. Where you reach the depths. It just again, there's a power in that to that can offer that kind of hope, I guess. And when you are going through difficult situations in
Mm.
future, that it gives you that sense that or certainly it has me, that there is something to be found here that's going to do me good in the future. And that really, again, can help you endure through those difficult times.
Yes, it's like a greater reason for why you're
Yeah,
going
yeah,
through this. And when we have compassion, if we, again, if we take ourselves away from ourselves
yeah,
in effect, and become compassionate in helping others, it not only heals them, but it heals us at the
yeah,
same time.
absolutely. Yeah. And that was something that I really found with writing. That writing really did that for me. That it, like I said at the start, I had a mind. I mean, rumination. It's one of the words that's really associated with depression. Like I said, I always had a mind that had a tendency to do that. And when I wrote, it things didn't circle around in my head. They came out onto a piece of paper. But it's almost like it wasn't a conscious thing. It's like that stuff's in there, and the medium of sitting down typing, or with a pen and a notebook, whatever, it got those things from outside of me.
Mm,
It took
mm.
them outside of me, and that gave it an objectivity as well, to be able and to be able to recognize things, patterns, connections, just to see things more objectively, and I guess put a bit of distance between me and whatever it was that was going on in my head or my life or whatever. But then there is that, by doing that, like you say, it also helps other people that where you've been able to articulate something that they're experiencing as well. But then
Mm.
beyond that, what if you're putting something out publicly into the world? There's then a connection that can be made when people get in touch with you, and so it just, again, it enriches your life in so many ways. Again, it has for me that you know, that it's I don't know what's the word. It's like a, you know, mutual thing in that you're both helping yourself and other people at the same time.
It's reciprocated
Yeah, that's it. It is.
between two people, and I think that's one of the most important things in life, is that we have this connection with people, and not the fact that we are, although we are so unique, we are also intrinsically very alike.
Absolutely.
And that we all somehow share the tears, the laughter, the sadness, the happiness.
Yeah, and that was something that I was, again, people sometimes say, you know, he's brave to write about, you know, whatever the, you know, personal, vulnerable stuff, but it never felt, for whatever reason, and I understand it is for some people that find it difficult. I always think, you know, it's brave to do things that you find difficult. I didn't find that difficult. For whatever reason, I didn't. And so I didn't ever feel brave doing it. But it's, it can help other people to find, to give other people courage, maybe where they do find something difficult, you know, to give them courage to be able to speak about something that needs to be spoken about. But also because for me, it was all relatable. I just knew as I was writing it, these are you, and again, in a sense, it wasn't about me. It's about universal experiences of, you know, deeply human things, about the extremes of love and losing that, of depression and you know, being at your lowest but then coming through that. You know, these are all very relatable. It's all part of being human. And so again, I didn't see it as a personal feeling, which sometimes is the fear and the perception around mental health problems. I did when I was going through it. And that's one of the things, even, you know, having gone through it again since I started writing about it, I still felt that way then. It was still very difficult to be open and to be seen when you're going through it. But afterwards, again, I don't have any sort of, you know, it's something many people experience. And while one of the biggest things it taught me was that, you know, how incredibly powerful our minds are, that if it can take me to a point where I'm so low and I'm not me anymore and I don't recognize myself, well, there's a flip side to that, and that you can cultivate positive ways of using your mind, and there's hidden potential and abilities in you to be unlocked as well. And that was something, again, that as a real positive thing that came out of it for me, in that belief in that, the being that opposite, and I could achieve more than I ever thought possible.
And the mind, you know, is a powerful thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And they say, Matthew, don't they? And I don't want to be quoted on this because I don't know the exact percentage, but they say that we only use a fraction of our mind.
Yeah.
And if we were to use it in its full capacity, in a sense, we could walk on water. You know, it's so powerful. You know, I always have this experience about parking, and I'm not the best, I have to say. And I have this very funny method, and it's what you're saying. It goes with hand in hand with what you're saying. And what I say to myself is, right, you're parking the car. Okay. Now, who are you? And I said, well, I'm Mimi. And I said, no, you're not. You are the head of the AA, the Automobile Association. You teach all the drivers how to, you know, and I had this really funny thing every time I have to get into a really tight space. If I think I'm me, I can't do it. But then what I do is I've promoted myself to being head of the AA. And I say, I'm head of the AA. And do you know, I park immediately. And I think, my goodness, if I could implement this in my life, you know, more, my goodness, what I could achieve, you know, not just the parking. So I totally understand about your mind.
I think it's really interesting you say that. And I suppose it ties into some of the stuff I'm doing now, because it's this, we play roles. We play roles in our life all the time. And this one thing when it's about reconciling different parts of yourself, this fact that I'd like to think I am a positive and confident person, but, at the same time, I've obviously gone through what I have done that stripped me of all of that. But, and I suppose reconciling different things, we play different roles at different times in different circumstances. And sometimes we have to consciously play a role. It's, I guess, I fake it till you make it. Play a role to
absolutely
achieve a certain thing. That's a great example of it that you just gave. We put ourselves in a different, and one of the things I find interesting, and again, where writing's really powerful, because it for me, it's that, when so something comes out of me that, and I always say that if you'd have sat me down 6 years ago and give me a copy of my book and said, you wrote that, I'd read it, and I thought, no chance. I couldn't write that, no chance. And still now I'll read it. And it's not that I sit here thinking, oh, yes, marvellous, brilliant. But just that, I would read it and I think, well, how did that come out of me? But again, I suppose it's in that particular role, I'm able, I don't know, I express myself.
Well, it's a facet, isn't it?
It brings
it's
out
like a
things
facet.
in. Yeah.
A facet of your personality. Because people think personality, and I'm no expert here, but I'm talking as, one soul to another here.
Yeah.
But we, as you said quite rightly, Matthew, we play different roles. And I don't mean that because we're so many different people. What I mean by that is we're we're different facets of the same diamond.
Yeah.
And
yeah, absolutely.
The writing, for example, I understand because I write also. And when I look back on what I write, I think, who the hell wrote that?
Yeah, absolutely.
You must think like this also, because you think, when did I do that? It's a totally different, unexplored side of ourselves. And I think that has to do with us being really multi-dimensional people and beings. There's so many layers to us that are still, we haven't discovered who we are.
Yeah, and that's it. And I think different circumstances, in terms of from a creative point of view, different mediums can unlock different aspects of us, I think. And
yes.
It was interesting, that thing where you said about, not about being different people. One of the things this reconciles. So one, this fact that I can be very introverted and quiet, I like to read and write a lot, or I can be very kind of chatty and confident and just non-stop chatter. There's real opposite sides of me. And funny enough, it's the thing with dating, and I said about, to be...
Oh, yes, that's what I wanted to... We were going to go on to that. Yes, you've had a real experience, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. But one of the things that really taught me, apart from what a nightmare internet dating is, one of the things it taught me is that how different people bring out different parts of you and different sides of you, and how, parts of you that had maybe, not been there for a long time can suddenly re-emerge. And so again, that how, who we are, how it can be, there's core, with our core essence, I guess, and characteristics, temperament. But, in terms of the way we behave and interact and which parts of us we show can really vary depending on who we're with. And again, I found that fascinating. And one of the things is that, in terms of looking for a partner, rather than necessarily thinking of a list of characteristics for them, which, and there's certain things that you like and that, values that you would hope someone would have. But it's one of the things I now think is what possibly the most important thing for me, someone I can be completely myself with, and that brings out those best parts of me and not so much the not so good parts of me. And that's about the interrelationship and who, the different the ways that we connect with different people.
And some people are just, I really believe this, some people are just not on our wavelength.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
they
yeah,
totally bring out the worst in us,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and that's fine, but we shouldn't spend time with those people. And I think we know innately if we are with the right people. And I think a lot of mental health issues occur when we do not accept ourselves
Oh,
and our
completely,
gut feeling that says,
completely.
this person, they might be lovely, but they're not for me.
Yeah, I that I think you've really hit on something there. That uh, but I mean, accepting who we are. I mean, that is
Yes.
a big thing. And this thing about, you know what, this thing of your life as a story, kind of accepting and owning your story, and
Yeah.
taking pride in it, and as well. And one of the things that I've seen, and I look back at, you know, my own state of mind, and different things, that when we aren't able to be who we feel we are, you know, when we have to repress parts of ourselves,
Yeah.
when we, for me, one of the big things, you know, where there's a big gap in how I see myself and how I want to be, and how maybe significant people to me perceive me,
Mm.
I have struggled with that. So that, you know, being with someone, being in a job, being in a circumstance, a living environment where you feel you can be totally accepted for how you are, I think it's one of the most important things. And this is where, you know, self-knowledge, self-awareness. Listen, you said, you know, that thing about your gut, your heart,
Mm.
learning to trust that, which is something, again, that has come out of over the last few years. I think, you know, often people have a lot of fear. We live in a society that can be, again, very judgmental, where, you know, we're told that we should be this, we should be that, we should be the other. But being you
It's a
and
way,
being
it's
able
like
to be
being,
you.
yeah, you're conditioned to be what other people
Yeah.
want you to be and
Yes.
what's in their um, soap opera that's going on. But that's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
actually the reality of your life. And I think when we jump into that role of what other people see us as,
Yeah.
I think that's when we really begin to suffer.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely.
And we have to walk away. You know, it doesn't matter, but it's a time in the world, especially now, in order to keep one's sanity, we have to walk away from everything
Oh
and
yeah.
everyone that disrespects our soul.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And that, and again, knowing yourself and being accepting of who you are is
Mm.
is a big, gives you the strength, the power to be able to do that, because you're at that point where no one else can define you, and they may think you're this, you're that, the other, but you don't feel, you know who you are. You don't have to prove and fight
Yeah.
to prove yourself to anybody else. And that, again, that's something, I don't feel the need to prove myself to anybody else. I know who I am, and plus, you know, having gone through it, that where you're stripped away of everything and you're on your own, essentially. You know, even if you've got people around you supporting you, no one else can go through that with you. It getting through that gives you or has me a much stronger sense of self and self-reliance. That
Yeah.
I only have to answer. You know, I like to be good, kind, do right by others, but like you say, if something isn't serving me, ultimately I've got to answer to myself and my own well-being first and foremost, because without that, I can't give the best of myself to my children, to my friends, to my family.
And to yourself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
You said something interesting, though, Matthew, there that I just want to go back to. It's the power to be yourself. So, what is that power that enables us to actually accept ourselves completely and totally?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because what is that
I
power,
think
really?
I'm trying to think how to put it, but that having a sense that you're being true to yourself, I think we do have a sense within ourselves of that. And one of the, I suppose my example of that, there's very few people I describe as heroes and idols to me. But the one I was say absolutely 100% is George Foreman, who was a heavyweight champion boxer. And he essentially had two careers. When he first was heavyweight champion in the 1970s, he was a mean, surly, nasty bully. He was awful. I mean, he was not a nice person. And he came back and he won the title again 20 years later. And he was a completely different person. And the you know, the whole thing with story, he had a religious experience. He became a very devout. He became a preacher. All of this, and he just became this fun, nice, kind, generous, giving person. And he, again, just polar opposites. And people didn't know how to take him. And there was an interview his promoter gave, and he said, George approached me to work with him, and I knew the old George. And I said, no, I want nothing to do with that. No. And this was over the phone, and Jock Forbes said, let me come and talk to you. And he said, I couldn't believe it. I thought, who's this guy? Like, who's this guy? And he said, and who would have believed that the second George was the real George? And it turned out that it had been a product of a really difficult background, and, you know, grew up in a real tough area. But partly as well that he thought that part of the role of being heavyweight champion was being the meanest, toughest, and the person he'd learned that from was a champion that was like that. And he thought that was how he had to be. But again, he went through an experience that stripped him away of everything and brought him to who he really was, and that wasn't him. And his story is so powerful and inspirational to me, and that I think there's a power in knowing your spirit, your soul, your essence, being true to that. And I think, and one of the things that I learned, it's funny because I saw a counsellor, and she said about really knowing who you are at your core, really having that strong sense of who you are deep inside. Yeah. And I'm thinking, well, I do. I'm really, I'm reflective. I always trying to improve myself, but it just hit home in that session that she was right. That a lot. I wanted people. I sort of wanted people to see me, or certain people to see me a certain way, that I would lose. You would compromise yourself in doing that sometimes. Not compromise in a moral or whatever sense, but just you start to shape yourself around what they want or what you think they want, rather than who you are. And I suppose the power comes in that, for me, I know it's there. It's been to a point where I can accept if for whatever reason, we're not rubbing along well, there's a different, that I don't see that that's a fault in me, that I have to change to win someone around or to get someone's affection, or I'm secure enough in who I am to think, well, it's just, this isn't the right circumstance for me.
But you know it, don't you? Deep inside,
absolutely. Yes,
we
absolutely.
all know it. But if you think about it, Matthew, I've often thought about this. I don't know about you, but I think, well, if all these other people are pretending, because in reality, how many of us know ourselves? It's like an eternal journey, isn't it? It's a lifelong journey.
Yeah, definitely.
And we're in constant motion of learning. And I think to myself, well, why don't I get on with that person? And you don't really know sometimes why you don't get on with someone, but something doesn't quite fit.
Yeah.
And we can never really get on with people that don't cherish our presence in their life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
and accept us, and they can't accept us because they haven't accepted themselves. So we're all playing this game of, well, I'm pretending to be a fish and I don't know, you're a bird. And in reality, we're not really, because we're both swans, but we haven't admitted that. And if we admitted that, then maybe we would actually get on. But everyone's caught in their own game. And we have to just let people get on with it, because I think if we can find that solace and that peace of the journey of getting to know at least what we don't want in life, I think that's really important. Then at least we know who resonates with our energy and who doesn't.
Yeah, definitely. It's and again, that's, you know, a lot of the things that you said there, mate, kind of really resonated from a sense of say internet dating in particular. I mean, really
tell us about that. I've been wanting to ask you about that. I have so many friends. Oh my goodness, I have one friend, and she has dossiers for all of them, would you believe? And she said to me, Mimi, will you write a book about it? And I said, no, I won't. I would swear, but I'm not going to write a book about it. But stories, like, I think she's been on 2,500 dates. And so I know so many people that do it, and they have the most fascinating stories, and some are actually quite scary, I have to say, also. Amongst all that. But share a little bit about your experience of internet dating.
It's
and give some advice for people out there.
Well, for me, I mean, my first experience, I met someone on my first day. I didn't meet them physically on the first day, but I got talking to someone that I met up the following week, and you know, we clicked, and well, we already had really before we met, but we'd clicked at a certain level through messaging, and we were together 10 months, and then we, you know, just at different places. We, you know, stages of our life and wherever, and we broke up, but there was no hard feelings. But so I'm thinking, oh, this is great. This, you know, like, it was easy to meet someone really good, and then since then it was just
tell us all what to avoid, and are there any sort of, like, I don't know, hints that you would give?
See, how do you pick up? The biggest one for me, I always say, is have no expectations whatsoever.
Okay.
And you know, take it. I also just think, you know, this is a night out. It's a chance to talk to someone, get to know someone, whatever. But because you were there, or certainly I was, you know, you want the relationship, and you know, I wanted to find that, I guess, in a way, replace what I'd lost in that, you know, in terms of that secure relationship and settled family and all of that kind of stuff. And it's the biggest one. The biggest one is judge people on their actions and not what they say, because you'll hear what you want to hear, you'll believe what you want to believe, but always listen to your gut and take notice of people's actions, because there can be a big difference between what people say to you and how they behave, and you know, they'll justify, and you know, if you want to see the best in people, but people can be pretty selfish.
Disappointing at times.
You have to look after your own, you know, feel, and again, and that's emotional strength, sort of strong sense of who you are, and what you're prepared to accept and what you're not prepared to accept, and don't compromise on that, because you know, I sometimes, I mean, you know, I thought to myself, you know, if either of my kids came to me and said, oh, look, you know, I met this person, this is going on, I'd be like, run a mile. You know, but we make excuses for people, and
but have you written a book about this?
So
Matthew?
I wrote about my experiences dating within my first book, but not like I went on this date and this happened, this date, but just the overall stuff around what it's like, what it taught me.
And what's the book called?
It's called Something Changed, and then the sub title is Stumbling Through Divorce, Dating and Depression.
Okay.
That's what it says on the tin.
Which is like what? A self-help guide as well as your own sort of experience of that?
I'd say, I wouldn't say it's a self-help guide, because I don't say you should do this, you should do this. It's more, this is what my experience of it was, and this is what I've learned. And what I've found is that a lot of people say, yeah, that's what it's like, that resonates with me. And people recognise, so I'd never presume to kind of tell anyone else what, we've all got to find our own way through things. But maybe if my experiences can shed some light on situation that might help other people, then I wanted to do that. But I'd never be so presumptuous, I guess, to say that, right, this is my experience, so therefore this is how it is, and listen to me, kind of thing.
Okay, so you're writing your life experience, and as you said, through storytelling, hopefully your experience will help somebody else out there that's quite possibly going through a very similar situation. And you've written another book, haven't you? What's the other book called?
So my second book, called A Familiar Stranger, and that's it's a poetry collection. It's about 100 and however many poems in that, and it's themed into 4 sections: living, kind of modern life and challenges; living, loving, falling, and rising. So relationships, again, mental health, but can relate to any form of struggle, really, and then overcoming those challenges. And the title of that came from a friend who we were talking, and she said about her, she was divorced, and she said how it's strange seeing her ex and realizing, and he's just a once familiar stranger. And I loved that term. And this is all with poems. A turn of phrase or an expression is usually what kind of prompts me to write something. And she said, "Oh, you should write a poem about that." I thought, "All right, I will." So I wrote a poem about that. And then when I was pulling together the book, I like things that can be interpreted to have different meanings. And so that related directly to that experience of someone becoming a familiar stranger to you. You recognize them, but they look like the same person, but you don't know who they are anymore. But also, I thought it described my experience a bit, in that because I'd written so personally about, like I said, pretty universal experience, but universal difficult experiences. So when that resonates, it can resonate quite strongly with people. So, and because of the way I write, people can get a sense that they know you. And so I'd have people contacting me, and particularly when people, through dating, we're chatting, they've found out and they've read about me. It's like they can know an awful lot about me, but actually they don't know me, and I don't know anything about them. So I kind of felt that thing about me being a familiar stranger as well, and that was something that was a bit strange for me, because to have people from all over the place contacting you and sharing their stories with you, and it was it's brilliant. But it is I love it, I think I always will. But you do catch yourself sometimes and think, it's a bit
a bit surreal.
Surreal is exactly it. I would never have expected it, but it is just that, about how we connect with stories, we connect with people's stories, and I've made some good friends.
It's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
When you hear a story, I mean, listening to your story now, it's in a way you are walking for that time in that person's life.
Yeah, Yeah.
They've allowed you in, haven't they,
Yeah, that's
momentarily?
right. Yeah.
It's
Yeah, that's
amazing,
right. And
really.
one of the things, so I mean, I've always been an avid reader, and and I've always been, I love character-driven stuff. So rather than plot page turner, plot twisty things, I always like real character-driven stuff where the characters stay with you, and nothing much might actually happen in terms of events, but it's that character journey. And so that's always been what kind of resonated with me. And I think one of the really good things when I wrote was, I suppose, discovering that I had a particular style of writing, a voice, my own voice, if you like. And the people said that they read it and it made them laugh and cry, and that's the biggest compliment for me, because to be able to touch someone emotionally and to those extremes, because I think that's that to again empathize, I guess, with with the struggles that people have and can be emotional, but also I love that to be able to make people laugh when talking about things that are so difficult. And it comes back to that thing about trying to find the positive, and it's an English thing, I suppose, as well, how we find the humor in things. And
Oh, funny
Dating
you
is a
should
classic
say that,
example. You have
actually.
to laugh.
It's true. It's true. It's true. My friend, I was just speaking to him prior to talking to you, and having the whole scenario with the rain and everything.
Yeah,
And he said something and he turned it into a joke. And I said to him, well, that's not very funny. And he said, well, no, you have to laugh,
yeah,
because
yeah,
unless you turn something into humor, it gets the better of you. You
yeah,
have to laugh
yeah,
at yourself.
yeah. And that's a really good, when you're saying about that personal power,
Mm,
um, being able to laugh at yourself and not take yourself so seriously.
yeah.
And that was, I'd say, that didn't come natural to me. But again, that's a very freeing thing to not, most of us we're scared of being laughed at,
Yeah.
and but being able to accept it, and it's not the worst thing in the world, and to think, yeah, well, you know what, yeah, maybe I did make a bit of a fool of myself, but it gave people a laugh. And to not see it as a real something that makes us feel bad about ourselves, again, that can be quite freeing as well, to
Yeah.
not be scared. Well, I think Adam and the Ants, wasn't it? Ridicule is nothing to be scared of.
Oh,
I
yes.
think
Yes.
that's
Yes.
again a very strong lyric, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, when we find people that we can laugh with, are usually the people that we
Oh
mostly
yeah, yeah,
love.
yeah,
Of all the
definitely.
people, there's that saying, of all the people that I have loved, are all the ones that made me laugh. And I really, really, truly believe that.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, my blog, for a period of time, I called it Love, Laughter and Truth, and it's from a comedian who he died in 1994, a guy called Bill Hicks, and I referred to a few of his quotes, and I referred, in the very first piece I wrote, I said that I used a quote from him, and I said, this is going to be my next tattoo, and it was. I've got a big tattoo of him on my arm. But
Well, have you?
yeah, and he said, I come in love, laughter and truth, and wherever love, laughter and truth abide, I'm there in spirit. And I just love that.
Oh,
And
I
that,
love
like you said,
that.
those three things, again, are amongst the most powerful things that are, like you said, that in terms of connecting us with other people, love, laughter and truth. I think, yeah, I it's very, and just one thing's of poetry I love about writing poetry,
Mm.
saying something quite, I would say, profound and making it out to be some philosopher, but it's a nice feeling to think you've captured something using very few words. I mean, obviously, I can go on as you as you can tell, but to distill something down to its real essence, that you can say something that very powerful very simply. And I think that love, laughter, and truth, I just love that.
I love that. I think that's beautiful, actually. And I think it says everything in three words. And I think this is
Yeah.
the power of words to,
Yes. Yeah.
you can, they always say the pen is mightier than the sword because it has
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
power to change lives in such a
Yeah.
way. And
Definitely.
I know I've spoken about this before, but I think it's really relevant even now that, we as people have so many things that we want to say.
Yeah.
And we just, I don't know, for whatever reason, whether it's fear, like you said, whether it's that fear of rejection or
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
fear
Oh,
of
yeah.
ridicule,
Yeah.
we can't say it. And that's why people like yourself are able to put into words the feelings that people can't express. And it's powerful. And poets were always feared in olden times because they always thought that they were magicians because they could
All right.
transform people's lives. Yeah, I read
Yeah.
about this. And it's true because look, you've just said three words to me, and I thought, how beautiful is that? And
Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
changed the mood immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that you just brought to mind a conversation I had with someone this morning. And
Mm.
I always love learning new things and, having a different perspective on something. And this lady was, or is, multilingual. And she was saying about how we, the English language said can be quite kind of practical and maybe not so expressive as some other languages. Just give the example, like, so we say like, have something is sad, and that's it. So, but like in other languages, it's like that thing about say igloo and sorry about in Eskimos have so many words for snow or something, and about how it just made me think. I wonder if that's a part of the thing with English. We say we struggle to express our feelings and our emotions, and it
Mm.
just made me think. I wonder, maybe if do we have the language? Is our language expressive enough? I've never. It's just. I mean, I don't know
That's
the
an
answer.
interesting.
But it
That's
was
an
just an
interesting way.
interesting
Yeah.
reflection that,
Mm.
again, just out of a conversation with someone, and one of the things that I love about. Poetry is my favorite thing to write because it's that using words in a way where you're looking at the rhythm, the rhyme. You're looking at finding a particular word that says something in a particular way that allows you to express and capture something in a way that you don't capture. For me, you can't capture any other way.
Mm.
And yeah, even the rhythm of it can, in terms of trying to capture a particular mood, it's just amazing the power of words, and how you can use them.
Oh yes, it is incredible. And I mean, I've been writing since a child,
Right.
and I always write. And the thing about it for me, it's a form of therapy as well,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
I used to do this when I was about 10 years old. Reasons why I'm in a bad mood. And, and then I'd be in a bad mood and I think, but I just haven't got anyone really to talk about, about all of this because, I was so deep and so,
Yeah,
dramatical, as you are,
yeah.
everything's so dramatized. So I would write it and reasons I'm in a bad mood. So there'd be two like sections. Why am I in a bad mood? And then I put the reason. And then I said, well, what can I do about it? And in the
Yeah.
end, I thought, it's all really a load of rubbish. But the point was, I got it outside of myself. And then
Yes,
I would
yeah,
rip it
yeah,
up and I feel
yeah,
better
yeah,
because it
definitely.
was no longer lingering inside of me, but it was
Yeah,
out there and I'd released it.
yeah, definitely.
So I think there is a lot to be said for what you said about words, and also music is another
Oh, yeah,
thing that
yeah.
I have several albums, and some of them myself and a friend have composed the music,
Oh, well.
and yeah, and that also, I don't know if you've ever tried, have you ever tried to compose music?
No, I haven't. No,
Try it. You
it's
have
something
to
I'd love
try
to be
it.
able to do because I love music.
Yeah, you've got to try it. You will love it. It actually is really, I would say, as powerful as writing, because you just go with the flow. It doesn't matter if
Yeah,
you can't play the instrument, or you can. Just go with the flow of the piano or the keyboard or something, and it really does express everything
yeah,
that can't be said. You have to
yeah,
try it.
yeah. I love that. And one of my favourite quotes is Jarvis Cocker, who was from Pulp, the band Pulp, and my book Something Changed is named after for one of their songs. It was the first dance at my wedding, and he talks about kind of creativity and why he loves writing music, and he said how the thought of, you know, you sit down to write something, create something, and it ends up that there's something there that wasn't there before. You've created something that wasn't there before, and he said, and that's a miraculous event for me. And we all, you know, we all could do with a few miracle, you know, miraculous events. And I just love that way of putting it. And they say that, yeah, that idea of creating something from nothing, and and the yeah, I must say, being able to compose music is something that I would love to be able to do that, because
Try it though. You know, you'll
music
be
moves me in
surprised.
a way. Yeah,
You will be surprised, because especially because you write poetry, and it will speak.
I have to
It
give
will
that a go.
speak.
Yeah,
You've got. I was. It was such a beautiful experience that I don't know. I really simply can't put it into
yeah,
words.
yeah, yeah,
You would have to listen to it, um, and then the music speaks.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
it.
I'm gonna have to
So
try that.
try that. It really is amazing. It's an amazing experience, and I know you will love it for sure, especially being the sort of soul that you are, into all things that are
Yeah,
deep.
yeah.
For sure.
Oh,
Now,
fantastic.
you have to let me know. You have to let me know
Yeah,
how you get on with that. Um, amazing, amazing story. You know, I could talk to you for hours, really, Matthew, because there's so much. This is the beauty of it. It's because you are such a good storyteller that,
oh, thank you.
you know, one thing leads on to another, and then another and another and
Yeah,
another.
yeah,
And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about storytelling, is it every single word takes you on another journey.
yeah. That's right, and it helps you make. Say for me, it helps you make connections as well,
Mm,
and
yeah.
it's funny when we're going back to what we were saying about that thing. You write something, and you think, where did that come from? How could I write something like that? And again, I used to think that, looking at whether it be songs or poems, and it's it's almost like a metaphor for life. And we talk about it with depression, and it's about one step at a time, 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time. And when I write, and poetry particularly, it's a word and a line at a time. So it's
Mm.
not like all you. I get a word at a time. I get a line at a time, and I write one line, and then the next one comes, and then the next one comes, and then you might have to knock it into shape a bit. But and it almost feels as though it's writing itself. It's not like you. And I suppose that's what I found when before I would have thought to myself I couldn't do anything like that, because almost you're looking at the whole completed thing and think you have
Mm.
to have that completed thing in your head, but it's not. It's that process of creating something is just a word and a line at a time. And I suppose it's a good metaphor for life, isn't it? You don't need to know all of what happens next. You just need to take the next step, or know that next you know
The next
the
breath, in a
overall
way.
direction, and the next step you can take in that
Mm.
direction.
And each breath holds infinite
Yeah, yeah,
possibilities, and we don't know how many breaths we have left. This is the thing.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
the infinite secret of life, is that we don't know. And I don't know, did you ever listen to the music, or do you listen to the music of Ennio Morricone? Have you heard of
Oh,
him?
yeah, the spaghetti western he did, Clint Eastwood
Mm,
films. Is
mm.
that right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not. I'm aware of it. Yeah,
yeah. Have a take a listen to his music. He's phenomenal. He died recently.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
you probably heard he was like 90 something,
yes, yeah.
and I love him. And I went to see him in concert in Blenheim Palace, and he
Oh
was
wow.
and that was only like a few years ago, and he was magnificent, really, in his work. And they did an interview with him, and I always think about him when I'm writing or doing anything creative. And they said to him, "Well, how can you do this? You know,
Yeah,
how do you write it?" Because Sergio Leone, the director, the
yeah,
filmmaker, said if it wasn't for him, the spaghetti westerns wouldn't have really been anything. It's his music that made it. And
yeah,
they said to him, "How do you do it?" You know, and he said, "I don't." He said, "It's not one of those things that you can just turn on and off. Um, you can want to write the music, but you can't. And there are some days it just flows." And he said, "And what I do is I sit by the piano and I wait."
oh, I love that.
And he said, "And I wait." And they said to him, "You know, it's quite an old, have a look on YouTube. It's an old interview, maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 years old." And I wait. And you know, the interviewer is saying, and it's in Italian, but you can see the subtitles. He said, "What are
Yeah,
you waiting for?" And he said, "I'm waiting for God to work through me."
oh, I love that.
And I just thought, wow, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
my goodness, this is the magnificence of a real artist, is that he's
yeah, yeah,
used as a vessel for a greater power.
yeah. I love that. I love that. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
And
and
that's the secret, I think.
yeah, I that and that's a whole other thing. I did an interview for something just the other week and talked
Mm.
about that the whole thing of creation and your role in it. It's like I think you say it comes from somewhere else outside of you. It comes through you, and then it goes outside of you again, and then it's you're part of a process. It's not necessarily of you, but your bit is to create it, and then out there, it's not yours anymore. It then belongs to whoever listens to it, reads it, interprets it, and then it's what it means to them. And you're just part of this much, much bigger process, and that comes from, well, however people define it. But I think, yeah, it's just fascinating, and to feel I play some sort of part of that is, again, that's the biggest thing writing's given me, I suppose. That sense of how it connects you with something bigger than yourself, but also with others as well, and
Yeah.
connecting to different parts of yourself. I mean, it's such a powerful thing, and I think anyway, it's that finding the medium that enables you to connect in that way. And I think there's something for everyone. I think we've all got that within us.
Yes, for sure. For sure. And we have all of us have the ability to share that in
Yeah,
some way with our own gift, whatever that gift
yeah,
is. It's to find that gift within ourselves.
yeah, definitely.
Matthew, it's been an absolute pleasure, I have to say.
Well, thanks very much. It
And
has for me.
really, it's really enlightening. And there's some really interesting lines that you've said. And I'm going to think especially about the infinite power of what it is to be ourselves. That's something to ponder on for sure. Beautiful, really. And, you know, as we come to the end of the episode, I always ask my guests this. But before I do,
Yeah.
tell the listeners where they can find out more about you, more about your books and your work, and where they can contact you.
So my website is named after my latest book, A Familiar Stranger. So that's
Mm-hmm.
www.afamiliarstranger.co.uk. And there's links on there to my Facebook page, my Twitter, and say I've got details of my books and my speaking and my course. And the books are available on Amazon, but also via my website if people wanted a signed copy.
Oh, okay,
So
that
yeah,
sounds nice.
that's where my
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that my website that contains where all of my writing is, and some of my, my vlogs, and I guess whatever I feel like talking about at any given time.
Excellent. And are your books available on Amazon, Matthew?
Yes, they are. Yeah,
they are. Okay.
They are. Yeah.
All right. And wonderful. Now, are you happy for people to sort of get in touch and
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Send you a message? They can do that via the website, can they?
Yeah, they can. Yeah, there's a contact page, or via social media. Yeah, it's always nice to connect with people again. Hear other people's experiences, and yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I do. I always like that.
Great. And yes, and now the question that I always ask my guests at the end, and that is, in a paragraph, life in a paragraph. What advice, Matthew, would you give to people out there that, has helped you to keep the hope alive?
This comes from when my last period of illness was last year. I went through a terrible time, and out of it, I changed my career, and I loved my career before that, but I just had a sense something had to change anyway. And the thing that kept me going through a really difficult time was that it was almost like a voice inside me, something that how I felt, and I felt that there was nothing ahead of me, and I just had that sense that this cannot be it. There's got to be something. There's got to be something good on the other side of this. This isn't how things are meant to be. This isn't how this is meant to end. And that sense that however alone you feel, however deserted you feel, there is something beyond that that's good. And it's just sometimes taking that next step towards it because it's there. And I'm at a point in my life now. I'm 45, nearly 46, where I think I've got enough life experience to start to say, yeah, it's not just wishful thinking. I've been through enough in my life, and I can look back at enough examples of where life has shown me that to be true.
Yeah, absolutely. And go back to the points in life where actually we've been through tough times and we've made it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
That's really good advice, actually. And to remember those really dark moments sometimes and say, well, I made it through them.
Yeah.
I can make it. I can make it now.
Yeah, definitely. And you can find it again, where you feel, I guess, at your weakest and most vulnerable. Out of that, say you can find out, just how much strength you do have within you.
Yes, and it's all a process, as you said.
It is, yeah.
It's finding out who we are. And once we reach that level of acceptance, I think everything then becomes easier.
Yeah, that's right. Definitely.
The acceptance of oneself. Amazing.
And life always, I think life's got a habit as well. It's one of the things I learn. Just when you think you've got it cracked, life will throw something else at you to teach you something else, or just to expand your understanding that little bit more. I think you said it earlier, we're always a work in progress. It's a lifelong thing. So you've always got to be prepared for that. You never get too complacent or sit on your laurels. I've sussed it now. There's always something else that can come along to think, well, maybe you need to think about this as well.
Yes. And I think this is the the beauty of it, of
Yeah.
life is that it is actually a journey, and we are not our thoughts, and thoughts
Yeah.
are passing.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
who we are, as you said earlier, the core, the essence of who we are remains.
Yeah.
Beautiful. It's really been a pleasure and an honor, Matthew, to have
Thank you
you
very much. No, I really
today.
appreciate it. I've really enjoyed it, and thank you very much for inviting me to come onto this podcast. It's been great. I've really
Oh,
enjoyed it.
it's been so lovely. And, as I said to you, I am going to think about quite a few things about what you said, because there's a profound wisdom in every meeting of every soul.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we have something to learn from each other for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. You look after yourself, and come on again sometime and tell us what you're up to, and
I'd love to. That'd be great.
yeah, and give us some more hints and wise words about life. That would be lovely.
Thank you very much.
All right. Take care, Matthew.
You too, Mimi. Thank you very much.
Okay, then. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Matthew Williams. The extraordinary is always the most amazing, and the amazing is always the most beautiful. And that is who we are, every single one of us. And the quest, which is in fact the eternal quest, is the quest for oneself. Until next time, take care and lots of love.
Thank you for listening to Secrets for an Inspirational Life, brought to you by your host, Mimi Novic. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast, and see you in the next episode. For more information about Mimi Novic and her books, music, and inspirational work, take a look at her website, www.miminovic.co.uk.